So the whole economy was skewed to serving the occupation and the needs of the occupation. So we became, after Oslo, the trading relationship did not decrease, actually it increased. So you look at the numbers before and after, you find that the coupling with the Israeli economy increased during the early days of Oslo. But the number of laborers declined, and you find severe unemployment that was generated particularly in the Gaza Strip. And also it was more exacerbated in the West Bank, particularly after the completion of the wall. But in order to restructure the labor market, because you need years to move somebody who's been doing something. We have, one guy from Sweden who was right next to me, who was working in social security in Sweden, where they rehabilitate the workers and give them new skills and new training and so on to find new jobs. The Oslo process, instead of supporting the Palestinian economy, it actually did the opposite because of the Israeli policies of restriction on access to markets, restriction on ability to export, closures, internal closures, which led to the suppression of economic activity internally, and competition and trying to stifle the competition, particularly in the agriculture sector. Let me give you a practical example. In Gaza, there used to be about 100 million carnations every season that was supposed to be exported to the flower market in Holland. But Gresco, the Israeli flower exporter, agriculture exporter, controls the market. And so when they had the closures, and the way they do it basically is it takes the farmer in Gaza, it costs him about 7 cents per flower to fertilize, to water, take care the whole season, and the plastic, they put them in these plastic sheds to make sure that that flower survives. When he's done, he brings the flowers. He used to bring them to Erez or at Karni. This is the checkpoint where the Israeli representative looks at the lots of flowers, and then he picks crème de la crème. He picks from the lots, and then whatever he likes, he picks, and then the rest the farmer has to return at his own expense. Actually, he has to bring at his own expense to the checkpoint, and then return at his own expense, and that would. The price that they would buy the best of the best, usually between 9 to 10 cents. So he only makes 2 cents for his troubles. But then the same carnation is sold, and plus he takes care of the packaging to the Israeli standards. Every 24 in a patch, and every 400 in a box, and then every 4,000 in a number of boxes, and ready to ship, and even with the Israeli logo ready on the flowers. At Christmas, and especially the Orthodox Christmas on the 7th of January, the same flower sells for $2 in the market. In Holland, on a normal season, it sells between 35, 32, 35, 38, depending on the market and the season. And so the majority of the price and the profit and the value added goes to the Israeli company. When there was closures in Gaza, the Palestinians decided they want to try to export through Egypt. So they did, and they had I think $300,000 worth of shipment. The Israelis were at the Rafah crossing point, and then all of a sudden they said, we need to security search this shipment, just in case if Palestinians are smuggling explosives from Gaza to Egypt. And then they brought in a metal prod, which basically went through the shipments, trying to ensure that there is no explosives by destroying all the packaging that was in the shipment. And then these flowers have to be kept at 4 degrees centigrade in a refrigerator. And so they took them out and put them in the sun for a number of hours. Okay? And then when they started to wilt, they put them back. And then there was, damage, maybe 20-30% to the shipments. But transportation cost, and then the shipments got to Ellesmere. And then what they did in the flower market is somebody, because they had such influence on the market over there, because they're the main suppliers of flowers from Israel, they changed the timing on the market when our products would go to market. And so when the auction started, we were late for the auction, and no one bought the flowers. And then we ended up paying a large sum of money to the municipality to destroy the flowers as garbage. And this is just to show you how the policy of the Israelis were doing in a practical level. So the challenge for us, really, and these practices still exist in different levels. Palestinian farmers and Palestinian producers are very innovative and entrepreneurial. Some of the people who used to work with Gresco retired or resigned and then formed their own companies. And then they partnered with Palestinians. And then it's funny, there was one guy who used to tell me that he used to get to the market, and because of the name is, his name is Muhammad something, and then so when his name on the auction list, the price of his flowers would just go down. So he partnered with Shlomo, an Israeli guy, I don't know his name, but, and so when he put his name, the prices started going up, and that's how he makes his business now, he goes through Shlomo, he gives him a cut, but he sells his flowers at the end of the day. During 2002, 2003, when of course we had the re-invasion in West Bank and Gaza, which also disrupted all economic activity and made it very possible. Even on curfew days, I used to, I was stuck in my office once looking from the window, and there was this truck, and there was Israelis cutting the road, and he was just coming back, going to the street over, and then they would cut him off, and then he would go and then go to the street behind him, coming off. And he like just kept looking, finding it, and at the end he made it, and he passed, But then he came back through our road, and I looked at and he was selling chips, basically. It was just a truck who was trying to deliver chips to the supermarkets, and the Israelis were it's curfew. You're not supposed to drive, but in spite of the Israeli army trucks and curfew or whatever, he still delivered his chips to the supermarkets, and that's the resilience of the Palestinian farmer and producer. Anyway, we have lots to do in terms of the Palestinian economy. There is things that we blame the occupation, but there are other things. The margin for the things that we need to improve is very high. And that is what we're hoping through this process of reform that's happening now, is that the Palestinian economy in 1999, before the Intifada, the budget was balanced, so it was self-sufficient. We had a growth around 9%. If we are left to our own devices, if our economy, if the restrictions, the closures, the checkpoints, I don't want to go into this in more detail, you know about this, our economy could grow on an annual basis of at least 10 to 12%, which is enough to generate enough employment, enough to absorb the productive capacities and improve. Let me come into the banking sector. The banking sector, like I said, we have 20 banks, $9 billion in assets. We, as a PMA, we manage about $1.3 billion in assets invested overseas. These are the bank reserves.